Event. Okay.
No.
Your event is starting.
No, it's
And
not.
we're live. What is up, guys?
No, we're
It is
not.
Sunday, the
Is it?
19th of November. And this is the Snappy-Tech podcast, episode number 20. We have two extra special guests. We have the wonderful Emily Hester. Say hello.
Hello, 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 hello.
And we
It
have
is me.
the decent Paul Stubbers. Which, actually, in my defense, is a better compliment than I gave you last time. So it's actually going up
There
well.
it is.
You are still reminding me of the start of QI. Just like
Eventually,
I am Alan Davis.
Eventually, I will
Um,
refer to you as the all-right Paul Stubbers, and that'll be... but not
It's
too
okay.
shabby Paul Stubbington. I've just realised, I think the background is like a couple of pixels off, is it? Let's see if that fixes it. However, it is the podcast number 20. I want to start with some news that isn't tech-related. It's actually completely unrelated to the tech landscape. It's related to this podcast, though. I just want to make a quick announcement that so I mentioned this at the end of the last episode, but I want to mention it at the start of this one, which is that next Sunday, this time next week, I will actually be on a plane traveling to Georgia, where I am moving for the next 3 months, and it is terrifying. I am terrified. The intention is to spend the next 3 months there. I have a PC that I'm taking with me, along with my webcam and my audio equipment and all that jazz. So we will be doing the podcast from Georgia. But yeah, that'll be as of next week. The podcast will also move up in time slot. Like I make that sound like it's like, you know, some form of promotion. Like, oh yeah, we were relegated to 8 p.m. and now we're earlier. That time will be 5 p.m. GMT. So if you're in the UK, that's 5 p.m. For me, because I'll be in Georgia. Georgia is 4 hours ahead, so for me it'll be 9 p.m. So it's an hour later for me, but 3 hours earlier for everyone on here. So make sure you sort of stay up to date on that. Next week, because I will be on a flight during the time the podcast is usually live, we are planning on pre-recording the podcast. So it will be... Oh, something just happened on Twitter. So it will be pre-recorded and will be uploaded and published for about 5 p.m. just to get into the groove of the new time slot. So expect a video next week that is pre-recorded, and it means that we won't be live on Twitch. So what the hell is happening on Twitter? I'm getting so many notifications from Twitter right now. Hang on, let me mute Chrome.
At least 2 of them are mine.
Yeah, like I saw you like
tagged G Chataniti and Snappy-Tech in one tweet.
I saw you like
as well as
posing to the
retweeting one
camera, and I was
actually.
like, screw you, Paul.
I retweeted one of your tweets as well. Wait,
Oh God.
did
All
you
the
say you
retweets,
muted
all
it?
the tags.
No,
Yeah.
I'm trying to. I can't.
Okay, cool.
I can't.
I can't mute Twitter right now. Oh God, I'm getting so many TweetDeck edit. Hang on, let me just block TweetDeck notifications for the next like 10 minutes.
Wait,
So,
no,
yeah.
don't do it. Don't. Okay,
Twitter,
Quick,
they're already
stop.
blocked. It's too late.
for fuck's sake.
Sorry.
Have you seen how many
Oh my
tweets
God,
I've
why
just
did
liked?
you do that? Paul just liked a bunch of
I just
tweets.
went through like 10 things.
Ah.
And so yeah, won't be
Only
live on
10
Twitch
minutes.
next week. We will be the week after. And then outside of that, in slightly happier news, we are planning on Emily and I are planning a new podcast
Yeah.
that will run. Daniel, yes, you did make it, by the way. We're planning a podcast that will run from Wednesday after. I'm still hearing TweetDeck go off. Sorry. I banned the I muted notifications and it's still going off. It was Sardine just tweeting me repeatedly with noise. Make noise. Make noise. Wait, hang on, let me show the screen here. I just want to say I hate you all. You're all horrible
Aw.
people. But look, this
Aiden.
all happened in the last like 30 seconds. But yeah, so it will be from Wednesday after next. So from Wednesday, I'm in Georgia from. It will be Wednesdays again, most likely 5 p.m, maybe 6. We'll make that concrete in the next episode of a Snappy-Tech podcast. And it will be on the Snappy Talk YouTube channel. It will be a talk podcast where we talk about stuff that isn't necessarily tech, or is specifically not tech, I should say. We'll talk about random stuff.
Everything.
Japanese game shows, which include people
Oh,
falling
God.
downstairs. That was hilarious. If you joined us in the pre-show, you'll know what we were talking about. That was ridiculous. Like, it was so good. But yeah, so with 10 minutes of me talking about stuff that isn't tech, let's get into an hour of actual tech. Oh God, I just dropped a thing. That's fine, we'll get over it. So, how are we doing? We're good. It's weird because I have to monitor 2 chats because there's the YouTube
It's alright,
chat
I've
and the
got the
Twitch
Switch
chat.
one, don't worry.
I've
So
got both because
I've got like
talented.
one open on each screen right now, so I'm just like glancing between them, trying to make sure I don't miss anything. So I want to say a huge thanks to everyone who's currently in the YouTube as well. So we have Swadine, so hi to Swadine, and then Lover of Tech, who was obviously our guest last week. Benjamin Ebamamnaha was on last week. It was great. I made that joke last week as well, but we'll skip past that. So yeah, let's talk tech news now that we've done the boring scheduling stuff. And I want to start with, actually, you guys can pick. Where do you guys want to start?
I will let Paul go because I feel like I know what he's going to say. And I feel like it's going to be the same thing. So
If it's going to be a rant, should I switch to Paul in the full screen? Should we assume he's going to run with it?
I know what he's going to pick.
Do you
Go on.
now?
Yeah.
I'm
Is it
just
going
gonna
to
go.
be?
I'm
like
gonna
it's gonna
go
be the
for.
Face ID.
Actually, yeah, just because of the joke I made.
Yeah.
Let's go with Face ID.
Let's go
Okay,
with
so
the Face ID.
So Paul, you have
people-
center screen. Give us your best rant.
So, yeah, for people that have been living under a rock, iPhone X got released or got into people's hands a couple of weeks ago, and of course one of the bigger features, apart from the screen with the notch, don't get me started on that, is the Face ID for unlocking your phone. So Apple went on about how it's so hard to trick it. Even some makeup artists that made some ridiculously realistic models of people's faces couldn't get it to unlock.
Can I just point out, that was my favourite part, the fact that, like, who was it, Wired spent so much money. They spent like 15 grand trying to make these masks, and then the research company spent like $150 and made it work.
Yes.
Like,
So yeah,
that's the best part.
this week some people, where was it from?
Vietnam, I believe.
Vietnam.
Vietnam,
Made a mask for $150, which I realised that it's actually $1,000 cheaper to steal a 256 gig iPhone and unlock it through these means than it is to actually buy it. $1,000 you save by stealing someone's phone. Which I think is so good, and I actually really need to message Greg about this, see what he thinks. But yeah, I just think this is great. The fact that it's actually been so foolproof, and then they've been able to fool it for $150. I'm guessing it's not going to be so easy for about 99.999% of the population.
You'd hope so, right?
Yeah, I'm guessing these people were pretty professional in this sort of fooling the security. Probably there's some artists in there, people who know stuff about facial recognition and stuff. But if they could actually make it ways that anyone could do this, then
I love how
I just-
everyone... Sorry, before we carry on, I just want to take a second to shame everyone in both chats, because it's not like it's just Twitch or just YouTube. Both chats are like hitting on the close-up of Paul. They're like, oh my god, this is so great.
It's
We
Paul.
have full screen Paul.
Full
Chats.
screen Paul.
They're just hitting on him right now.
You look at that.
Sorry, what were you saying?
I mean, like Paul was saying, it's only a matter of time It was it was only a matter of time. And I love how in the article, like one of the main quotes that highlighted is it was even simpler than we ourselves thought.
Yeah, that's
Like they genuinely didn't believe that it was going to be that easy to do it. But I'm not surprised somebody figured it out, to be honest. Like with most things that seem to happen when it's revolutionary and new, there's always going to be somebody that can not make it work as intended, you know.
But I would like to note, though, they did say about because it was 3D printed, so the 3D printer itself would, to get one accurate enough, would probably be a lot more than $150. But if you do have access to a 3D printer worth thousands, then good luck to you. Go steal an iPhone and earn back that money.
I also want to point out, I'm not sure if this was mentioned in the Wired article I linked, but I think it was mentioned in the blog post. And I'd thought of it as well, which is that, you know, they needed a 3D scanner to scan their face, which at first sounds like, oh my god, how do you manage that? And then you realise the Sony Xperia XZ has one built in. So you can like do, because it's designed to make like proper 3D models of stuff. So you just take the latest Sony Xperia phone and you can scan someone's face with it.
But then you've got to find someone that actually owns a Sony phone.
Oh, you just buy one.
Oh,
that's the...
you could just buy one, yeah.
Yeah, God.
Yeah, I suppose the
monster.
the grand that you're saving is enough
How
to
much
buy
does
that.
Oh, sorry, it's XZ, not ZX. Always get that confused. It's only $300 as well. You can pick one up for $300.
Yep, get it.
So just saying, you can make
Might
that
be worth
happen.
it. Nick an iPhone, you know. Let's work on it, guys. Let's go.
I can't believe my Twitter got so hardly spammed. Like, it was so spam. God damn it, guys. That's why we can't have good things.
Sorry.
Oh, man.
Oh.
We can't have good things. Then no more close-ups of my face. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, it's all your fault. But yeah, it's the thing that strikes me is that Wired had tried so hard. And
Yeah, and then these guys are just like, oh,
it wasn't even that. Like,
we did it.
because Apple showed off their like wall of stuff, right? Their wall of faces, essentially. And Jack Stills made the joke that they were like, we use the Face ID to suck your soul out, which is what all the little dots are, and then this is where we store them all, right? And then like the fake faces. And
oh god.
And yet, you know, and then Wired took that same approach of trying to make it look as realistic as possible. Whereas, what was their name? Bukav, I assume is how you pronounce it. If you were to look at the mask, and if I show you guys the mask, it looks nothing like a real person. Like, you're not convincing any actual... You're not convincing any actual people that this is a face. But it's just right to convince Face ID. And that's what matters.
Yeah.
Like, this thing, it doesn't even look remotely face-like. Like...
No, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. Like... It's kind of like a living nightmare.
And the crazy bit is...
created. But
the crazy
it works,
bit is, like, the eyes are actually just 2D pictures. Like, they're just printed onto paper. Like...
Yeah. It just looks like someone's wearing a ski mask. So if you know any robbers that have an iPhone X, then just take their phone.
If you know any thieves with Face ID, you can just... Yeah, the thing that it took a week, which I don't know anymore. Is that a long time? Is that a short time? Did we what did you guys expect it to last like a year?
Think with a lot of tech now, that is a minimum time. Though I was expecting, considering how hard Apple pushed the security, I was expecting it to be done at some point, but it was going to take like a month or so to do it. But the fact they've done it sort of in the minimum time it could have taken anyone to break into anything with any even minor amount of security is just mind-boggling. Seriously, Apple. I mean, I shit on you enough as it is. Come on, you're making it too easy for me.
Yeah.
But the thing is, with Apple, you know that they're now going to respond to this story, and they're probably going to make a software tweak to make it even harder to actually recognize the face, recognize that a 3D model of a face with a couple of pictures put onto it is not an actual face. That they must
Or
be
is
able to.
it? Dun dun dun.
Yeah, that's philosophy lessons now.
See, the thing is, though, because Apple they have this problem now, because they've done something like this, people are not going to stop until they do hack it. So no matter what they do, someone is going to try and hack it because that's just what people do. You know, and especially with something like this where they've said, oh, it's basically impossible to do anything to, people are going to be like, right, well, you know what, you set me a challenge, I'm going to do it, sort of thing. So that's the problem now, because they're going to have all these people that's like, well, you said it's impossible, I could prove you wrong. So I don't know how they're going to be able to stop that, but you know, we'll see.
And is this just a demonstration? I think, you know, it's hard to blame Apple in the sense that even if they weren't to have said how secure and amazing it is, it was going to be hacked eventually, right? It's just an inevitability.
I think it actually makes it more vulnerable when you say it's so secure. Yeah, it puts some people's minds at rest, but then it's like a challenge to the hackers.
Yeah,
then the hackers go out of their way to try and get into it just so they can say, like, we've broken into something that was supposedly unbreakable.
I mean, it's like putting a red button in front of a kid and saying, "Don't push it." Like, you know, that's essentially what they've done. By saying it's secure, it puts everyone that owns one at ease. They're like, okay, yeah, this is safe. But then everyone else on the dark web is sitting there like, but is it though?
Like,
Really?
in front of my dog. No matter how, if you keep saying wait, eventually he's just gonna go at it. There's a limit.
And from there, I want to lead on to a second topic and see what your opinion is on this, because I feel like Paul will really enjoy this one. It's not in the show notes because I just remembered that it happened, and I never got around to putting it in the show notes. There was a kid, 4 years old or something. I need to find the thing, but I want to say the kid was like 4 years old, who got into their mum's Face ID.
What?
And the mum was like, "Oh, the first time we found it funny, and then we realised that, like, the fourth and fifth time we were like, well, now we just need to delete like anything that we don't want our kids seeing,
or just need to go over to a passcode."
So
Yeah,
Apple, you know, being Apple, released a statement in the end claiming that it was something to do with the lighting, and the mum reset up Face ID, and now the kid can't get in anymore. But,
Okay.
that was hilarious to me. They were just like, you know, the kid was like, "Oh look, it can get into your phone," and then he kept doing it. And that's, to be fair, that is the reason that it's not recommended for kids, right? Because, you know, their faces are less developed. There's less uniqueness to them at a younger age,
and they're changing a lot.
Generic child face.
You could actually end up locking yourself out of your own phone by growing up.
Can you imagine?
Actually.
You know what? I just realized. Can you imagine, like, setting up your phone like now, and then like you know, turning it off, sticking it in a drawer, and then 5 years later coming back trying to use Face ID again, and it just doesn't recognize you. So who the hell are you?
Still me.
But the thing is that is actually a genuine problem for kids if they don't use an iPhone X in a year. Then they could come back and they could have changed so much that their phone would just not recognize them whatsoever.
Okay, but my first question is, why the hell are you giving an iPhone 10 to a kid? Like...
Yeah. Well, do you know what? I would answer that, but so many kids these days have a better phone than I do, so I'm not going to.
I had someone Snapchat the other week say about they were getting their iPhone 8 Plus the next day, and a day after that they said, "Sorry guys, I've not got a phone anymore. I've locked myself out of my phone already," because she'd already forgot her passcode.
Oh my god!
Wow.
She That's the kind of thing that, like,
actually, I think she had the phone for like 12 hours. Actually, I think it wasn't even a full day, and she'd already forgot the passcode she'd set and couldn't get back into the phone. So she ended up having no phone. Actually, I think she's still not got a phone like a week or so later.
Oh, that's stupid.
So she's just using what I think it's like an iPod or something on Wi-Fi.
Kill me now.
I know. I was so pissed when I was like, "You were getting an iPhone 8 Plus," And then
Did they
she
not
gave
even
that-
set up Touch ID?
Apparently
I don't think-
not.
God.
Apparently she couldn't unlock it whatsoever unless she it just fucked up so many times she needed to put in a passcode.
That was bad, man.
Don't know, just
Anyway. Ah,
And actually, Paul, you mentioned kids and iPhones, and I want to use that as a transitional point into our next topic.
another
In-
scary topic.
And yeah, which is another security topic, which I want to mention. If you look at the show notes, which is smpy.tech/sn20, so show notes 20. I didn't get the time to do the show notes this week, so Paul decided to go in and put little show notes in most of them. Oh, thanks, Emily, for sticking it in the chat.
that's okay.
And under the bottom one, which is Germany banning kids' smartwatches and classing them as illegal spying devices, he wrote, "Since when did the NSA make kids' smartwatches?" Which is great.
Oh no, I heard about this. It's the VTech thing. There's a VTech smartwatch. I only know it because it's Christmas. There are fucking kids adverts everywhere, and it's this little. It's basically like so imagine the Apple smartwatch, and times the size of the screen, so it's basically a phone, but on a wrist strap. That's essentially what this kid's smartwatch is. And it has a camera on it and it takes pictures. I'm pretty sure it doesn't have Wi-Fi on it. It has like 2 crappy games. And that's it. That's all it's got on it.
So
If
the
that's what they're
issue-
talking about.
The issue with, and this is a blanket ban of all smartwatches, not just the VTech ones, I believe.
Oh, all smart. Wow. So you
correct.
can't give. Why would you give a smartwatch to a kid anyway?
Because this is smartwatches that are designed for kids.
Oh, designed for kids. So
Yeah.
like the VTech one. I see.
Yeah. And the issue is, according to the German government, that they are riddled with security holes. And it means that I can't find the exact sentence I wanted to read. But the issue is they're riddled with security holes, which means that they can... Paul, why are you playing with Panda? Why are you...
I can't. Oh, I've got a rabbit. Hang on.
Oh my... What is happening here? There's an uprising happening in the podcast.
Anyway, back to business. Back to business.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
Usta-chan.
Anyway, yeah. I see. Kids' smartwatches at least from the one that we've got in the UK anyway, it doesn't have Wi-Fi on it. So I don't know how. I don't get how they're spying devices.
So the ones
That's what
that-
I don't get.
The ones that the German government mentioned specifically actually have 3G built in. They're designed. They're designed to be like connected 24/7 kind of deal.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
And it allows for parents to drop in, so they can start
That is a bit
listening to the
creepy.
device at any moment in time.
That's weird. That's
Imagine starting to hit on someone, and then your mum starts listening to you hitting on someone. Right?
that would be really creepy. Oh God.
Especially if they're kids' smartwatches, though. Like if they're young kids, that would be even creepier.
Yeah.
In a way, like
In a way,
actually, I was trying to think of a good reason for kids to have a smartwatch, but there isn't one. So never mind.
So the thing that and I forget what the name of the company was, so I won't try to name it because I know I'll just butcher the name anyway. Is there was a company that sold them as an alternative to giving your kids phones. So this wasn't a toy smartwatch; this was a proper smartwatch for kids.
Oh, okay.
And the idea was, if you didn't want them to have a phone, you just stick this watch on them. If
There you go,
they
kid.
be free and just release them into the wild. Never see them
Oh.
ever again.
So
But-
I suppose it's like so the parents can keep track of their kids
Yeah, so
instead
it
of them having a phone.
It would have GPS so you could track them. It would have a
It's
big
like giving them a prison bracelet.
basically, yeah. It had a big red button on it, so if you clicked it, it would
my
immediately
God.
call the parents.
So, hitting on Emily's point, though, if you want to do this and you don't have the money to buy one for your kid, just get them arrested.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
just get
it's
them-
essentially if it's giving them a tracking device and being like, there you go have fun. I'm going to listen and watch everything you do, but have fun, you know? Like that's creepy. I mean, I know it's your parents and obviously they want you to be safe and stuff, but that to me that's too far.
Yeah.
They've had this whole problem of everyone just sort of because when I was younger, I remember like falling off a brick wall and my mum being like, you'll be okay. But now if a kid even goes anywhere near a brick wall, they freak out, you know?
Like the brick wall's going to punch them.
Yeah, and it's like that's way too I think that's a bit too far, you know, like
Yeah, because your kid's then just going to want to climb up on the brick wall and
it's, I
see
mean,
what it's all about and then probably fall off.
and then you have these parents that are going to give them these tracking devices, and this is where you get kids that become incredibly rebellious because they've been essentially tracked, you know, their entire childhood. So they're going to want to start doing things without wearing said watch, or they're going to start doing things that they don't want their parents to see because they've been tracked, which is just stupid.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't want to be followed around essentially all the time. That's weird, you know.
So, of course, because I actually had the fun of having an ex whose parents actually tracked her phone without her realizing at first until I figured it out.
Can I just ask? Oh, hang on. Whoa, that was I almost knocked my tea over onto my keyboard. That would have been
Don't
embarrassing.
do that. It's worse on a mouse.
So I was gonna ask Paul, how did you? What was the process of realization? How did that happen? Like,
Well, so we figured it out by the fact that one day she was over my house. She said she was at band practice, and her dad called her up and said, "Where are you?" And she was like, "Oh, at band practice." And he was like, "No, I know you're not at band practice. Where are you?" She's like, "Oh, I was in Romford." And then he was like, "No, I know you're lying to me. Where are you?" And after a few times of being like, "No, I am actually in Romford," and him insisting, you kind of realised he had some sort of intel to realise that she wasn't there, because there was no reason from what she was saying that he should have known any different. And then I actually turned off the location services, and then when she'd got home, he actually said to her, "I'll put the tracking back on," and actually omitted it then. And she can be a nice girl, but her parents, this kind of sums up how controlling her dad was, and that kind of has made her not so much rebellious as some other kids would be, but at the same point she wants out of the house as soon as she can. And it does make you kind of like, why the hell are you doing this? Start to question your parents a lot more on things. It's just harder work for the parents half the time. At least if you just let them learn things the hard way. I mean, certain things, like make sure they're not gonna go anything.
Anything stupid, you know. Yeah.
Don't go up to a guy with a knife and be like, "Oi, prick."
You know,
I mean, that's
you don't need to stick a tracking device on them. You know, but you don't need to stick a tracking device on them. That's a bit extreme, and that is kind of weird. So in a way, I kind of agree with the fact that they've just banned that, because it's just fucking weird. Even if it is your parents, it's just weird. Like, why would you do that?
No, the reason that Germany has actually banned it is because the voice recording on it.
Yeah.
It isn't even the tracking itself, because apparently some parents were even using it to listen, or claiming to using it to listen to the teachers in class, to see how they were doing. And of course, as it is in many countries around the world, it's illegal to record someone without everyone in the recording giving permission to it. So people were listening in on conversations, whilst most of the people in said conversation, and usually including the kids, didn't even know that someone was listening in.
That's weird.
So if we take out the audio recording bit and just look at the tracking, I have a question for you, which is that if it was used not in the way that Paul's ex's girlfriend, but in the sense that if you knew that you were letting a kid out to go do whatever, and then every now and again you just checked in to make sure they were okay, right? Or the kid goes missing, hypothetically, and then you can use that to find them, right? Because it has GPS.
Yeah.
So it's not to say that there aren't any good
There are
uses for it.
positives to it. Yeah.
It's just
I
much
mean-
like most technology, it can be used for bad.
Yeah, I think it's too tempting having it there. I think it's very important for parents to know where their kids are, especially younger kids. Especially the younger kids that shouldn't have iPhones yet do have the iPhones for tracking. But I think the problem is once the technology is there, some parents end up checking in a little too much and then become a bit stalkery. I think parents should be able to know where their children are. They should be able to know if their children are lying to them and be able to punish them to make sure they're not lying. But in certain cases, it does become like that case where she got grounded for like 3 weeks, a month or something, for her dad tracking her phone behind her back when she was doing nothing wrong. She just wanted to spend a bit of time with me because they used to be super controlling about her seeing me. So what she was doing in that case was nothing wrong.
Yeah.
But I think once you've got that ability there, it's too hard to say,
I'm not
or
gonna
too
use
hard
it
to
as
turn
something.
into a educational thing.
Yeah.
End up being like, oh, you lied to me, I'm going to make sure you pay for it, kind of thing.
So
Yeah, it's
one more question, which is what if it worked a bit like a messenger service, right? So instead of me going, hey, I wonder where Paul is right now, it would ping him a message saying, Paul, George wants to know where you are, and then you can approve or deny that request.
I think that would be better because
Yeah.
then, I mean, if you say, for example, if the kid denied it, then you could automatically be a bit like, okay, this is a bit weird, and then you would obviously go to the next step of like, okay, seriously, where are they?
Wait,
But
hang on,
if-
sorry, just to interrupt. It just dawned on me that if they had to approve or deny, then if they're in trouble, they may not be able to approve. So what if it was you have 30 seconds to deny or else we share your location? Because that's what Amazon does with the drop-in function, right? You get whatever it is, 30 seconds to say, no, don't drop in, or it gives them your location, which I think is a better idea just in case you're not able to access your device, but you need someone to know where you are.
And then if they're not in trouble, it wouldn't matter because then it would still give you a location. It's okay. Sort of thing.
If you'd been like kidnapped or something like that, if they have your phone, then they can, if you've not got a lock on there, go on and then deny that request anyway. So if they put like a simple passcode, you could even have one for like the rest thing if you want to get particularly technical, whatever. But you could put in the code then just to say, yeah, no, I'm absolutely fine. It is me on the phone, but no, I don't want you to know where I am. Though I'm guessing most parents would be like, why the fuck won't you let me know where you are? You must be somewhere where you shouldn't be, kind of thing. So
yeah,
it's a bit suspicious.
It's odd if nothing else, right?
Yeah, it's a strange concept indeed.
this is certainly a conversation for a Snappy Talk podcast, though.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So
My favourite line, though, I just want to point out, is this. The agency is now urging parents to destroy any such devices and is advising schools to pay more attention to watches with conversation recording functions among students.
Oh,
well,
wow.
you know what government agency is usually referred to as the agency?
The National Security Agency will be paid a fee to bring.
No, the CIA.
You okay,
No,
George?
just
That
they're
was a
very
horrible
worse
idea.
than the NSA.
Just
So
dying.
Shane Guilty isn't in the chat, so he
That's what
can
happens when I try to
sort of
rap.
shine a light on the American issues.
Oh, man.
I think we should move on to something a bit more less weird.
Something a bit more uplifting, maybe?
Yeah, something a bit more uplifting, definitely.
In a slightly more uplift. Woo!
Is
You
it
good?
related to? Does anyone have some spare money to buy me something?
No.
No.
Oh, but I want a Tesla.
Oh, it's Tesla.
Yeah, sure, let's do that. Let's talk
Tesla.
Tesla.
Yay!
Tesla announced 2 new vehicles.
George.
Sorry, I really need a second, apparently.
Rip.
You want me to introduce it
Yes,
whilst you
please.
die? Okay, so whilst George like coughs himself to death, RIP by the way. Tesla have announced 2 new vehicles this week. We knew one of them was coming. The other one was a bit more of a wow.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we knew they were going to be making a truck. So that one has, I think it's either 300 or 500 miles. It's meant to be able to top up. I think it's about 400 miles in about a half hour.
500 miles, yeah.
Yeah, range
Yeah.
of 500.
500
No,
miles.
in a half hour, it's meant to like
One
top up.
Oh, yeah,
four-
so, right.
Oh, yeah.
Half an
Sorry.
hour for...
Uh,
oh, God.
on their super mega power things.
Sorry, I'm going to have to mute my mic.
It's meant to have a central driving seat with a few seats behind as well. And it looks a bit too futuristic, to be honest. Especially
It does look a
driving.
little bit weird for a van, to be
It's-
honest.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't affect the driving itself being in the center, because it is useful actually being in our side of the right when driving, because that's the proper side.
That's only whilst in the UK, right? If you're in Europe, then you want to be on the left.
Yeah,
having
where
having
else
it
is
central
there?
might be...
Yeah, so it's easier for them actually, just to
Mm.
make it that then they can have all the controls actually as they are in the rest of the world or whatever. It doesn't need to change. So for their point of, they might actually be able to sell more because they'll be able to make more. And it does actually look really good. I know a lot of people have been like, "Oh, but trucks that go long distances. You need something that can do a long distance and all that." If a truck driver wants to drive more than like 350, 400 miles without stopping for half hour, then they're
I think
probably
it's a safety issue more than anything else,
Yeah.
right?
because they have to stop. There are laws to make sure they do stop every so often. So the fact that they can drive, say, like 350 miles, top up in half hour for another 400 or whatever, so they can keep up the fuel. So it actually automatically introduces a safety thing because you're not stopping for like 2 minutes to fuel up, then back on the
Yeah.
road again.
Well, here's the thing: it's not 2 minutes though, because those things are massive, right? And a truck.
Oh,
and
God, yeah.
I think
True.
Elon Musk mentioned it. And if not, someone definitely did whilst talking about the Tesla truck. But it can take like 45 minutes, an hour to fill up one of those things, like because they're
Close
huge.
to full as well, yeah. But I mean, so half hour is actually pretty good, especially for 400 miles
Yeah,
on a truck like that. Because of course trucks can carry tons and tons of payload. If it can do that kind of mileage on such a short charge, then like what kind of aliens are working for Tesla with their future technologies?
and not only that, that's 500 miles of range at full load.
Yeah,
That's at full capacity. If if you're not running it at full capacity, then it's longer, right? We're not quite sure how much further it is, depending on load, but it's still further.
yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how much longer they can do it. I'm sure there will be someone that gets it with zero load and does it on one of those endurance tests where they get like far more than it would ever actually get. But there is a chance that in that case that you could even push it to over 1,000 on one of those endurance tests. Even the Model S got like 600 on one.
Yes, I can't remember what the record is.
Because they are running for like hours and hours at like 15 miles an hour or something like that.
What I'm interested in, actually, just reading through the link, the 98% of the kinetic energy to the battery is recovered. Apparently,
Yep.
braking recovers that's insane. With an
Yeah, that
infinite
is-
brake life, that is insane.
That is Formula One level brake recovery. Yeah,
For
that
for
is-
a truck, that's insane.
Yeah,
Right.
the efficiency in those parts. I mean, like,
Mm.
that is just ridiculous how they can make it that efficient. Once again, what aliens do they have working there? Um,
I really do want to know how they've managed to get it at 98%.
I've got
do.
another one I really do want to know, but that's once we're done with the truck.
And the low cost of ownership. It says it's like, oh, just for this small deposit, but you'll make it all back in fuel savings, we swear.
Well, apparently you save like 200 grand of fuel a year. I don't know whether that's including factoring in the cost of electric, or whether that's just
because they said saving.
Yeah, it's just so.
Yeah.
Because I think if you just look on their site, it's a bit weird.
So it's what, 12 cents per kilowatt hour, which is actually pretty good. 12 cents per kilowatt hour. Like they said, that's actually a lot better than us here, I think. Because I actually don't know what we're on. Anyway, ours is not that low.
I also want to mention that that record that Paul mentioned is actually 670 miles on one charge on Model S.
Yeah, I think it was a bit. Yeah, nearly.
I've got the thing here, so it's 670.
But however, though, if you do save your 200 grand on fuel in a year, you can afford the second vehicle that they announced.
Hey! That thing looks glorious.
Oh, it was gorgeous.
If people don't know, they've announced a car called the Tesla Roadster, and
wait. It's the Tesla Roadster V2. It's the second Roadster. It's not their first.
Yeah, most people have got the first one though. But most people that know me know if I were to ever win the lottery, I would buy an Aston Martin and a normal Tesla. Now I would buy those two cars in one. This thing looks unreal. And we were saying about, of course, like how the fuck have they done some of the things with the truck? How the hell have they done a car with 1.9 seconds to 60?
It looks
that is
glorious.
What do Formula E cars do?
They're not too far off, I believe.
Yeah, they're because I know they were better than the S.
Oh no, that's better.
But I know normal Formula One cars don't do that, and they cost millions to make. And this thing is a road car with 1.9. It's ridiculous. I know electric cars are meant to have better acceleration.
1.7.
Like, here and instant power.
Oh, sorry. My bad. Formula 1 cars do 0 to 60 in 1.7. Formula E cars are actually restricted to 3 seconds.
Strange.
This is due to the fact that they have it set up to last longer as opposed to raw power.
Okay. Yeah. So actually, the other thing, of course, we said about how the hell did they get a 500-mile battery on the trucks? How the hell have they got a 620-mile range on the Roadster? I mean, the top Tesla S was rated for around 350, 400.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah.
So if that can get about 670 on the endurance tests, this must be easily able to break 1,000.
See,
I know driving this one at 15 miles an hour for a day is a bit of a waste, considering it could do over 250. So it's in a hypercar territory.
oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm looking at it, and there hasn't been any. So there's not any official sort of. Well, you can't access the kit from the from the link because it's password protected. So we can't have a nose around all the stuff. So on the web page, there's a little Roadster section, and it's like click to press kit here, and you can't look at it because it's password protected. But if this is the Roadster, and we're looking at, did they release anything about the price we could be expecting for this kind of thing?
Yeah, so the Roadster, it has 2 models at the moment. There's a Founder Series, which is a 250 grand price.
So all the money you could save on fuel, you can buy a Roadster almost.
Emily,
sorry,
just to interrupt real quick. I hate to be a pain, but if you'd looked on the right-hand side of the page, it does read, to access high-resolution B-roll images and video, click here. Password, Tesla One Press.
It's because it's closed. Yeah.
If I go into
base
the
model
Roadster,
of the
what
Roadster
looks
though,
like. Not now.
considering all cars they have the 1.9 seconds acceleration, or so it seems that the 620 miles distance, the 4 seats they all have, which is ridiculous for a hypercar, and it's reservation of 50 grand. And a 200 grand base price. There will be, of course, extras. There's bound to be. However, I'm guessing at a price like this, a lot of it will come. A lot of the fancy stuff will come pre-installed. Similar to, I mean, even Model S comes with a lot of pre-installed stuff. But it'd be interesting to see things like the adaptive cruise control, and of course the future of the self-driving cars, whether all of that stuff comes pre-installed, whether you can actually have the full self-driving capability, of course, to come when that's allowed. Man, I really want to win the lottery now.
Yeah.
I mean, I really wanted to win before, but now it gives me even more reason.
I mean, it is a gorgeous looking car. Besides everything else,
beautiful.
besides everything it can do, it is a gorgeous looking car. When it came out and how they introduced it and how it was all done when they brought it out, it looks stunning. The color it's in is perfect for it as well. It's just very aesthetically pleasing. And the fact that you can just look at it and you just know this thing is going to be a beast. Like when it came out and everyone was like, "Oh, by the way, we have a Roadster." You were just kind of like, okay, if this truck can do this kind of shit, they've got that to do. What the hell is the Roadster going to be able to do? You know,
And
like this thing is probably going to be light and nippy, and you're just not going to be able to, like, Jesus, I can't
I'm
imagine.
still surprised the 4 seats. I mean, they don't have the massive engines that a lot of hypercars have, so that's great. You could almost take a family trip in a car.
Oh, you don't want to though. Trust me.
Yeah.
Like,
but
you really don't want to. You can, but you shouldn't.
Yeah. Not surprised.
The other Teslas, of course, like this got great acceleration. The other Teslas also decent handling. Having the low drag is useful. But I mean, this thing, considering how light it's going to be, it's probably going to handle like cars like the Lotuses, that's all so light and just stick to the road.
And its center of gravity is so low because all the weight's in the battery packs as well.
All the weight being that low, it's just going to make this thing handle like at 250 miles an hour. This is going to handle like some sports cars do at 150. Almost. It's just going to be that. Like I'd love to be able to get the chance to drive like a few cars around a track, but then compare them all to this, because I think they're going to beat them all. It's like having a Formula E car that's actually can be used on roads almost.
So Marcus Brownlee did a video about it yesterday. MKBHD, in case you don't know by name. He was in love with it, and I'm pretty sure. His dilemma at the end of the video was that he wasn't sure whether or not he should reserve one.
Do I or don't I?
I'm pretty sure, like 10 minutes after he released the video, he reserved one.
Yeah, he said he reserved it.
I don't blame him, to be honest. I mean, what do you reckon? So, what is it? 5K down for the truck? So what is it down going to be for this?
It's 50.
It's 50.
50. Whoa.
Yeah, I said it.
It's 50 for a stat. Oh God.
50 for a standard one.
Yeah, or 250
for a standard,
for the
or
founders.
250 for the
Yeah,
Oh,
you basically got to pay the entire thing for the Founders Series ones.
Yeah, well, that kind of makes sense because I imagine that's kind of the limited edition one. So they basically just want you to buy it and then they'll give it to you when it's ready, sort of thing. So I can kind of understand that.
So and I love how Marquez has just spent the last 2 days tweeting about the Roadster 2, like nothing else. So he said, yesterday he tweeted, "Hey, look, some production car quarter mile times. The Nissan GTR 10.8 seconds, the McLaren P1 9.8 seconds, the Bugatti Veyron SS 9.7 seconds, the Tesla Roadster 2 8.8 seconds." It is crazy.
That's impressive. But then again, when did they ever? I don't remember when Tesla hadn't released something that wasn't impressive. This is the thing. They are, well, I say they. You know, I say they colloquially until actually with that thing we talked about in the podcast quite a while back when they were talking about spacecraft on Earth, but we'll just
But that's
leave
all
that.
SpaceX. That's the
Yeah, we'll just leave
another one of
we'll just leave his side project out of this
Yeah.
because that's just not just weird. But everything else seems to be going really good for him.
I keep watching this thing over and over again where it's just like the 250 mile an hour, the 621 mile range, and then showing the 0 to 60 in 1.9 seconds, and it basically gets to 60 within about 25, 30 feet of where it started.
Oh,
It's
Yeah,
so
no,
quick.
that's a crazy
insane.
bit.
I know. So basically, at lights, no one's gonna beat you.
Yeah. Jeez.
Oh man.
And it's silent. Like that's the crazy thing.
Yeah.
Like you
That's-
can't.
Basically,
That's mildly worrying.
it's probably
actually,
going to make
how
a
that
little bit more
fast.
noise than
Yeah.
the others will do. There's probably going to be a bit more whirring noise, I guess.
Yeah, so it's worth mentioning
but-
if you ever go to a Formula E race, you'll notice that those things there's like it's like a whistling noise kind of. They like whistle
Mhm.
past as the motors spin. But yeah, it's interesting. Nonetheless.
Oof.
I was in Cardiff yesterday to watch the Wales versus Georgia rugby, which was really good. Georgia played really well, but that's not a tech subject. What is though is I was in the car with someone who's a few years younger than me, and is about to go into uni. So they're in the second year of college. So they applied to their unis, and they want to do mechanical engineering. And they sort of had this dilemma of like, I want to be designing engines, but 5 years from now, no one's going to want an engine.
No one's gonna want an engine, yeah. That's yeah, it's see the engineering, so mechanical engineering as a side is gonna be interesting, especially car wise, because like you say, they're not gonna require engines as such because people are gonna want to be focusing more on electric powered cars. So yeah, more motors than engines, and so the electrical engineers is probably gonna kick up a fuss when that happens because the mechanical engineers are going to be designing more interior parts, probably the more mechanical bits, as it were, well, obviously. And then electrical engineer is probably going to be the one you want to try and get into more, I'd imagine, especially if you want to work with cars now, because you're going to have all of this electrical motors that people want, and you're going to have all of this other stuff that people are trying to improve with electrical engineers, and they're going to be the forefront of that. So it's odd because a lot of people, when you do think that when you design cars that it's like, oh, there's just mechanical engineers behind it, but you do forget that you have all the electrical engineers that are now sort of crawling out of the dark with their LEDs in hand waiting to get started on the new cars of the future. So we'll just see how that goes.
And in what can only be described as another victory for Tesla, we've had the UK government come out today and announce that self-driving cars will be on the roads by, what was it, 2021, I believe?
2021 by
2021.
2021.
Which is crazy.
That is a bit crazy, kind of scary.
Now,
to be honest.
I've been of the opinion that... What's happened here? Okay, I'll fix that in a minute. I've been of the opinion that the real issue for self-driving cars isn't going to be the technology, it's going to be the policy. It's whenever governments start allowing self-driving cars. So the fact that Chancellor Philip Hammond, I should say, has told the BBC that the objective was to have, quote, fully driverless cars without a safety attendant on board in use by 2021 is great for me because I've been holding off getting a driver's license specifically because of this. Like,
Then you have to be able to afford one of them.
That's been like my argument like all this time because people keep telling me, George, why don't you get a driver? So for those who don't know, I have a racing license. I can race a car around a track, but I can't drive one on the road.
To the track.
Yeah,
to the track. I need to be driven to the track, and then I can pelt it around at 150 miles an hour, and I have to be driven home again. But you know, and whenever someone asks why I don't have a license, for me, part of it is that, you know, I don't have anywhere to drive to right now, right? There's nowhere for me to
Mm-hmm.
drive. And part
Yeah,
of
I
it is
understand that.
also, I'm just like, you know, 5 years from now, they'll be driving themselves. Like, who cares? Like, there's no point in. I'll deal with it for the next 5 years and then get a self-driving car. It's fine.
That's presuming though that because something that's been debated for a while, will you need a license to have a self-driving car?
No, because here's the thing: when you get a car that's completely self-driving and doesn't need an attendant and can handle itself, there's no need, right? Because
But the thing is-
it won't have a steering wheel. It won't have
It
a
will
brake,
just, it
an
will essentially
accelerator.
be.
It'll just be a pod, right? It'll be like
But
it'll be
that's-
like,
yeah,
it'll be like
yeah.
a
on
DLR,
wheels. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
There'll be
That
like
is
right.
if.
there'll be an emergency stop button, and that's it.
Yeah,
Probably,
that is
yeah.
if though it is fully self-driving and you can't control it for yourself, because there will still be a lot of people that are like, well, I love the self-driving, I want it to be able to self-drive
But I
to
also
me,
want to
I want to
drive.
be able to sometimes sit back, relax and let it drive itself. But there's still going to be lots of people that want to drive their cars around for themselves, especially whilst there are plenty of other cars on the roads that are being driven by people. You can't be expected to have to let the car drive it for itself.
I think
So
there'll be
in the
some-
case where you can control the car, is there going to be a case or be something so the controls can be locked for those that don't have a license?
I reckon how it will work is there'll be levels, right? So if you want, so you know how currently if you get like a driver's license to drive an automatic, you can't drive a manual, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it'll be like that. If you get a license to drive a car, then you can be in any car, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have a license, there will be cars that exclusively only self-drive that you'll be able to get. If you
Yeah.
want to be able to drive a car yourself, you can get one that is both self-driving and not self-driving when you don't want it to be.
Mm.
I think that
you're
might be.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to apply for provisionals still, and it might be a case of provisionals can be because at the moment I think you only have them for like 5 years or something. Maybe the lifetime of them can be extended if you have it for an electric car. But I think they might actually start putting digital chips in the cards. So in certain cases where you might actually have to put in your license to say to the car, look, I can actually drive you, kind of thing. So you could actually have a self-driving car that has a steering wheel, but then you put your card in and it's like, yeah, so I can actually let you use the steering wheel, or no, I can't let you use the steering wheel, kind of thing.
I think, like you said, I think it would be better that if they did if you had separate cars. So, like you said, with the manual and the automatic, if you had one that explicitly was self-driving and one that did both, because then, like you said, the ones that did both would be more like an autopilot in a sense.
Yeah.
So you could just sort of be like, okay, you can drive me
Autopilot.
off, sort of thing, you know. And the other ones would be completely self-driving, and that to me sounds like a better idea than just saying, oh, yep, all the self-driving cars that we release are going to be self-driving, because there might come a time where you sort of like sit there and be, okay, maybe I want to drive, or this is a busy road, I don't feel comfortable not being in control, I want to drive. So
There are
Especially
also
for-
occasions where self-driving cars just don't work. Like if you want to do like yard work, or if you want to drive
Yeah.
around a racetrack, right? There are occasions where you need to be able to drive it yourself.
you need to drive.
and there are
yeah.
people who won't be able to get
Trust it,
self-drive. You know,
well. And of course, on some roads, the of course self-driving's meant to be able to go through any situations, but there will be some roads where it's just so much more comforting to do it yourself,
Yeah.
just in case. I mean, because over near you, George, you've got things like Pike Lane and a
Yeah.
bunch of those other single lane roads around there that have barely any markings. It's just so much more comforting for a driver to be able to say, okay, I'm going to take control of the car now, and I'll give you the control back in a minute.
But
Yeah.
is that the wrong feeling in that situation? Because it's more dangerous and because there are no or limited markings, isn't that the exact situation you want the car to be driving
Yeah.
itself?
I
Because
think in those
because the car can't
situations,
make that mistake.
in those situations, if a car can make as safe a judgment as a driver, but of course there are a lot of with a car, yeah, you've got to get it to think for itself, but that's easier said than done. Of course, this is the biggest problem with self-driving, what type of choices they make. And it's easy enough to tell them what choices to make when there are lines to follow, when there are plenty of signage, and that there are set parts where your car can actually go up to on the side of the road before hitting some grass, some dirt, slipping, whatever. So there are going to be roads that are just going to be too confusing for it to work. I've been down country roads before when I've actually started thinking, like, self-driving cars would be great, but they would be so stumped when they got to a road like these, because some roads are just not common enough for the sort of the every eventuality to be thought of in that circumstance. There is going to be a situation that ends up stumping it, and it's going to probably drive safely until an issue comes up.
But surely it's a matter of, you know, it encounters that issue once or twice, and then it's fine, right? Because
as long as it's
not
got
only
some
that,
kind of system for learning from it, it should be fine.
Yeah, not only will it be learning, because let's be honest, it does. But it's also not just learning by its own experience. It's learning by every experience that any of the cars has had, right? So the moment any Tesla owner, for example, has to drive on a country road and it's a bit dodgy, it will then know how to handle. Then all Teslas can handle that situation.
Yeah, as long as it's got something like that, it should be fine.
I feel like it's one of those things where it will be an issue for the first couple of months. But if you buy a self-driving car 6 months in, they've covered almost every situation possible, right? There are.
Yeah.
It would take something really extreme at that point.
Well, I think that when the autopilot for Tesla gets launched at first, they are going to suddenly need a lot of people to be looking at the data. So that they're going to need something in the code to say, I'm not sure what to do here. Flag this eventually.
Yeah, what do I do?
Flag this event up, record it possibly, and send that back to some people that then can tell the system what to do in that eventuality. Then send that, or get the software people to send that update out.
I think
what Tesla's currently do. Just to point out real quick.
After you.
I just want to say what Tesla's currently do is for the first month or whatever, I don't know what the actual time frame is. For the first period of time, they run in shadow mode. So what happens is as you drive around, the self-driving AI pretends it's driving the car, and what it does is it records what it would have done in any situation, and is sent to the servers, and they then, and only after a month, or whatever that time frame is, then you can actually get it to self-drive once it knows how you handle each situation.
I was going to say that was something like that would be a lot better. So say I'm assuming it's going to have some form of Google Maps-esque type thing that it has. It'd probably be Tesla's own
Tesla literally just uses Google Maps because it's got Ubuntu, so it basically runs the tablet runs Linux, so it's literally Google Maps.
So I'd imagine it knows the route it's got to take. What another thing would be, so I think another good thing would be, so like you said, for the first few months or so, it won't self-drive. You need to teach it, essentially, how to handle certain situations. What I think would be good, if you get one that you can have the option to take over, if it knows the route it's going, and it's not travelled down something maybe it's not encountered this type of roundabout, or this type of bend, or this type of road signage, or whatever, and it doesn't know what to do, it could highlight that on the route before you get to it and say, I might need you to drive this bit for me. What do I do, sort of thing. So you know that you might not necessarily be able to get it to self-drive for this route because it doesn't know how to handle X part of the journey, which would be another good way of handling it if it knew before you started, which it could do when it highlights the routes. I think that would be another good way of handling it. You
probably also get two options, right? You either get the quickest route or the quickest route that is entirely self-driving, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think... actually, that's made me think. 'Cause of course, at the moment, there is an autopilot out. It's adaptive cruise control plus system kind of thing. But one of the things that you have to do when you're using that, every now and then, it's like, I don't feel your hands on the steering wheel. Just wiggle the steering wheel to show you've got your hands there.
You're alive.
So it might get to a point where it's kind of like, okay, I'm not sure about this road, put your hands on the steering wheel just in case. And of course, in the case of the current autopilot, if it needs your help, it will set off an alarm. So, and it'll give you a couple of seconds, and then you take control yourself. So in that case, it could say, put your hands on the steering wheel, just give it a little nudge to show you're using it. And if an alarm sets off, then it means you're back in control of the car. So that could be one way around it, though I'm guessing Tesla will do all that they can to avoid people thinking, wait, the car can't handle these roads, kind of thing. And there will also be situations where you're not in the car to take control of it, because part of the idea is you can be in be in like Manchester or something. My car can be sitting at outside my house here. I can call the car to me. It can stop off at Tesla power stations on the way, charge itself up, then get itself to me.
Yeah.
I tell you what, it would stop. It would stop a massive drink driving problem if you could get it to map your route home.
Oh, absolutely.
It would almost, well, not eradicate that problem, because that would mean everyone that drinks has to own a self-driving car. But if you did happen to be on a night out and you needed to get home, it would nearly eradicate the problem of having a drunk driver, providing you could...
Uber.
I mean, it would eradicate Uber as well.
But
it would essentially be your own
that in
taxi
part
service.
is why Tesla are working toward Uber are working towards making self-driving cars. The other thing is Tesla foresees a future where most people don't own cars. Cars are like taxis in the sense that because they're all self-driving, you'll call a car to you, you'll get in, it'll take you where you're going, and you'll get out. And because of that, you won't need to own a car, right? Again, unless you're someone who wants to drive around a track or be able to, there are situations where owning a car is great, but if I have no use apart from going to the shops or getting to Manchester or whatever, right? So it's one of those things where it's not a matter of needing to own it. I just go into the Tesla app and go, take me home, and it would, right? As car turns up, I get in and it drops me off at home. And as Daniel in the chat mentions, it wouldn't get rid of crashes per se, because especially if there's at least a percentage of human driving cars on the road, there's that level of unpredictability. But it does go a long way towards getting rid of them.
Getting down,
and making roads safer.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think if we can get to a point where there's a higher percentage of self-driving cars than there are as normal cars, the roads would be a lot safer. Especially because I'm under the assumption they will have things to be able to register crossings, they will be able to register traffic lights, they'll be able to register all of these things that will make everything a lot safer, not only for people that are driving, but for pedestrians as well. So people trying to cross the roads, they will be guaranteed that car will stop. No one will jump red lights anymore, because that car, if it sees a red light, is going to stop. So it makes everything a lot safer for people crossing the roads as well.
Yeah, I do think the amount of self-driving cars question is an important one, because I can't remember what article it is I read in. Is it this one? That they were saying, there's been estimates that suggest that they could reach 10 million self-driving cars worldwide by 2030. However, when you put that in comparison to the amount of cars that are actually on the road worldwide, that's about 1 billion. So you're going to have 10 million self-driving cars that are so much safer, but there's that's, I can't even think of how much times more, 100 times more person-driven cars on the road than self-driven. So,
and I think that might be a slightly more conservative estimate, in the sense that because this is before, and as I said earlier, the legislation is really what will keep this back instead of the technology, right? But what we will find is it might be 1% in the world, but it might be, out of those 10 million, what if a lot of them are in the UK, right? What if it's 1 in 10 globally, but 1 in 100 globally, but 1 in 5 in the UK? right? Because you know, let's be honest, the US, the UK will be higher than average.
Well, yeah,
Oh,
the
yeah, definitely.
UK are trying to make it easier because I mean,
And
like
yeah,
with
and that's part of the reason, right?
yeah, the idea of we want to be able to have fully self-driving cars on the road by 2021 that don't need someone there to control it in case something goes wrong. So the UK could be leading this charge. Further down the page, it actually even says by 2025 there could be 10 million on the roads. So
And I think that means just in the UK.
um, I think
Is
this is
the
generally.
implication.
So, but that actually could be a possibility that in the UK there's, say, how many cars do you think in the UK? Probably about 50 million, maybe 50 million vehicles, I'd say, on the road in the UK.
Well, yeah. So I suppose around that. If we say there's what 65 million people that live here.
Yeah, about 65, 70. So if you say there's 50 million vehicles on the road in the UK,
yeah, thereabouts, because some people have 2 cars and stuff. So
if we even like, we're probably going to have a decent percentage of that 10 million worldwide. So if you say we have even half, so that would be 1 in 10 cars on the road in the UK would at that point be self-driving. And that would actually be enough of a percentage to dramatically increase the safety of the roads.
for sure.
Yeah, especially if things like the Tesla truck actually has the full self-driving, and a lot of the unsafeness of the truck drivers ends up getting mitigated.
I just checked; it's 39 million roughly.
39 million. So even better. I mean, about one. It'd be about one.
That's pretty good.
5. I mean, because 5 minutes out. 5 million out of the 10 would probably be a bit more than we'd have, but
I think that's still
probably about 10 we'd probably still have for 4, maybe.
Oh yeah.
So, but I think the main contributing factor is though the price of the self-driving car, because I mean at the moment
Tesla
to get
are
a
really
Tesla
pushing to lower that, right? The price
Still,
of the Model 3 is quite cheap.
Yeah,
for a
but then
new
to
car.
have self-driving,
I thought so, yeah.
bonus of it costs about 40. I think it's about 45, 50 grand for a Tesla with the full self-driving capabilities
No.
included. Yeah, because the extra packs cost about 4 to, I think it's 4 for the first, and 8 grand to have the 2 extra packs you need. So it does cost about 45, 50 grand for a car that's fully self-driving from Tesla. I know other companies are going to do it, but of course Tesla's the one most people want. But it's this other companies are as far ahead as them and bring out a reasonable price. I mean, because most people, if this car's going to be above 30, then it's automatically out of the range, even second hand, of most people on the roads. So
I've just checked. It's about 32 grand
that's for the base model 3.
with the self-driving. It's $42,000, so about 30. Round up plus tax, I guess 35 grand.
Yeah, but they probably there's a lot more tax. I don't know what the vehicle tax is though, because
So
it does.
in US dollars, it's 42,000. 43,000.
It'd probably be similar here.
Yeah, probably. But I expect to be at least...
I know the Model S though to get that with self-driving here.
Because I think the car, I'd assume the car is, but I think I'd expect the software updates to be slightly lower.
And also I know with the Model S, of course, that's a bit more expensive. But to get that, even with the minimum distance, luckily, which is now up to 304 for the minimum distance. That costs. Wait, let me just have a double check. You need enhanced autopilot of 5.7 grand, and then full self-driving another 3.8 grand. So to buy that in cash would be 72 grand for the Model S with full self-driving, and I'm doubting the 3 would be less than 40 once you have it imported. And that's just a bit too far out of most people's range.
These costs are going to tumble though, right? Let's,
You would hope.
Oh yeah. No, I think they will.
Yeah, I'm hoping that once the Model 3 has been out for 2 or 3 years, then they're going to have whatever the next one, Model 4, Model WF, whatever. I don't know what they'll do. But at that point, they might bring out a car that's similar to the Model 3 in standards, but then say another 5-10 grand cheaper. Sort of typical Tesla thing to keep up the standards, but drop the price a bunch. Make it even more accessible.
It's also worth mentioning, if you get it with the Tesla instead of like paying for it afterwards, like if you pay for the vehicle and get self-driving whilst you pay for the vehicle, you get it's $2,000 off.
Okay.
So it is cheaper if you do it with the vehicle as opposed to getting a vehicle and then doing it afterwards.
$2,000.
Yeah.
All the savings. It's like when somebody says, "Oh yeah, it's 99. It's £99.99, so it's under £100, right?"
Yeah.
Totally.
Of course it is. Drop in the ocean at the price of that thing. Oh well.
Savings.
Savings.
So
yeah.
I want to... Hang on, let me just bump up my video because the light is slowly dimming. I want to talk about one last topic, and then I want to call it a show, because we've been going for over an hour now. And I just want to point out, Swadine on my YouTube chat mentioned that driving instructors will go out of business soon. They're not the only ones.
Yeah.
There are going to be loads of people going out of business soon. I hate to break it to
Taxi
you.
services.
Taxis,
buses.
yeah.
And Snappy-Tech is going to carry on going strong.
Yeah, Snappy.
Yeah.
Nothing can take down the power of the house that is Snappy-Tech. The technological powerhouse.
And our game streaming division.
Yeah, it totally exists.
Oh, okay.
Well, we do have technically a game streaming division.
Yeah.
It's called the Professor X Academy.
Sure, why not? Screw it.
Well, the actual Professor X has an academy, so why can't this Professor X?
True.
Yeah.
True.
Professor Xavier's Academy for Gifted
The last
Children.
thing I want to talk about, and because I want to end on a high note, is YouTube being absolute geniuses.
It's only a matter.
They banned one of their own YouTube channels.
It's only a matter of time.
So they're magical. I'm gonna need to go grab another battery for this light. I should have probably brought it up with me because I can sense it dying, and by sense it dying I mean it's really dim in here all of a sudden. So I'm gonna start the topic and then I'll disappear to grab the light.
Right.
So YouTube accidentally banned one of their own YouTube channels called CitizenTube. It's a YouTube channel that hasn't had a video put on it in the last 5 years. It's now back again, which is nice. CitizenTube was designed as a YouTube channel for views in countries with less freedom of speech. Things like Syrian activist accounts, from things happening in Aleppo and things like that, right? This isn't stuff that was designed to gain a bunch of views. It was stuff that was informing you of what was happening around the world. Now, probably because of the fact that YouTube's algorithm was designed to like, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but YouTube's algorithm was designed to make sure things are advertiser friendly, and you know it broke its own rules so many times that it banned itself.
It sounds about right, to be honest. Like, I'm honestly not surprised that YouTube has done it to themselves, because hopefully this is going to highlight how stupid that their algorithm is. Hopefully this is going to be like, okay, hang on a minute, we actually banned ourselves this time. I didn't think it was possible, but we did it. You know, it's like, it's the kind of thing, it's almost laughable, because they sit there and they protest that it's okay so much. They're like, no, it's fine, guys, it's working. Like, we're just getting out some kinks, and then they go and ban their own channel. You know? And it's like, just working out some kinks, YouTube. Yeah, okay. I see.
By the way, a quick answer for Daniel in chat. Free.
Oh god, I was trying to find my panda hat. That's what I was trying to find. That's why I was digging around in my
I also want to
wardrobe.
mention the exact sentence that was given was that this account has been terminated due to multiple or severe violations of YouTube's policy against spam, deceptive practices, and misleading content or other terms of service violations. So, wow, I really said that. That came out really well. I was expecting to at least stumble at least on one of its words.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and interestingly, I hadn't realised this because I didn't really take a look at it properly, but Android Police has mentioned that it looks like it's been hacked.
Oh, the channel?
Yeah, it looks like that was the reason it went down.
Oh, okay.
Either way, it's still hilarious.
Hmm.
Give me two.
Well, there's page material.
So this is the. Let me stick this in.
I'm having a nose through the terms of service, actually, just as you mentioned that it was like, oh, you broke the terms of service, but if it's got hacked, then it's kind of irrelevant. But I'm having a look.
So here's the thing.
These
titles look a bit seem a bit dodgy to me. So it looks like it's been hacked after the fact, as opposed to hacked and then taken down. What I will actually, you know what will fix this? If we go into the Internet Time Machine, I think it's just called archive.org. Yeah, it is. So if I show you guys, if I show the screen, I want that one, so you can see. If we go to the profile and hit browse history, it just looks a bit off to me. Like reading the names. Let's go back to 2013.
Yeah.
Of the playlists, just read weirdly to me.
I mean, see, the thing is, a couple of them I can. I'm looking. So one of the terms of service contains material that is unlawful to you, or poses in the country, or would be unlawful to YouTube, or poses connection with X. So essentially, it's like, don't post anything that could get you or whatever you are being in trouble. But then I'm looking at some of these playlist titles, and I'm like, some of it looks like pretty sensitive stuff. Like,
this isn't very advertiser friendly.
No, it's not. Like, it's definitely.
I'll be right back.
Not.
I'm gonna grab another battery. So you guys lead the conversation.
Especially where it's like a couple of them are like, okay, so one of them is UK hit with more heavy snow. Like, okay, that's fine.
Well,
and then the next one is like violent flares in Egypt over death sentence verdict, and it's like, okay.
I think the homepage of the channel kind of says it all, really, about how it's went a bit too un-advertiser friendly. It's kind of sort of like the hard-hitting journalism, which is, I mean, it's great sometimes. But of course, the first one's body of slain Tunisian opposition leader returns home.
Yeah,
then the next playlist called Malta lands behind child as she sings after rally. I mean, the fact that, of course, Malta lands isn't the too big a deal, but the fact it's about child, adding the fact she's singing after a rally, it's just like, no. And then the first one is protesting Bangladesh as Jamaat-e-Islami leader sentenced. That is...
It's not...
The fact those are the three highlighted playlists on the front of the channel, that is a little suspect.
It's definitely not.
I think if someone said that, like, oh, why the hell has it went down? It must have been hacked. Must be a massive mistake. Then fair enough. If it weren't for these three, if someone said to me, "Oh, it must have been hacked," or "There's a genuine reason for it," I think with these three, they fully got a point. It doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not they're not the kind of videos that I would look at to be informed. They look pretty intense, to be honest. They look
some of the ones that have been brought down over the years. Some of the videos that have been taken down recently, being un-advertiser friendly and all of that. It's very much, what the hell's going on? And I'm cramping my neck from holding my neck over to hold this guy on here.
But it's like, I don't understand how YouTube do something like this and they'll ban it and they'll be like, oh no, it's definitely not that. And if it was hacked, then that's not their problem. But like you say, looking at some of these playlists, I'm like, okay, no, it does actually look like some of it violates your own terms of service, which is just
Especially
stupid.
when
Hilarious.
the playlist reads "Body of slain
Yeah,
Tunisian opposition
we were
leader
just talking
returns
about
home."
it.
Yeah,
Or-
while
It's
she's
like,
gone, I was saying the home was just it's like that's just either it's been hacked and they've made it as obvious as possible, or Google are really breaking their terms of service. Really,
So I went into archive.org and looked back. That title for those playlists have been there since 2013. So those aren't
So, yeah,
new.
that's
Oh
definitely.
wow.
So these are videos from other people that have been put into playlists on the front page of the channel.
It's also worth
And-
mentioning that these guys haven't uploaded a video since 2012. Like, this channel hasn't been touched since 2012.
Apart
Well, then
from
even if it
adding
did
these,
go, it's
playlists.
not necessarily it's going to be detrimental if it does go. If anything, if they just owned up to it and said, yeah, okay, we've changed our terms of service, now our own stuff that we previously thought was okay doesn't agree with it, that may have been better. If they'd have just sort of owned up to that and been like, okay, yeah, we've done some pretty dodgy stuff in the past too, and we've changed our terms of service to make it a little bit user-friendly for everyone, that may have made it a little bit better, because they could have sort of been like, okay, yeah, this was not the best channel. We've changed it so it's more advertiser friendly, more user friendly, and we appreciate that this doesn't fit that anymore. But they
And I
haven't.
think, yeah, I think as well the fact that this has come into the news now because it went down, and they've actually put it back out themselves, because they would have had to manually unban it.
Yeah.
The fact it's been reviewed by people from YouTube and yet hasn't been realised that crap, this is actually against our terms of service. They've actually one of their employees has put it back up without changing whatsoever. It's
But here's the thing:
hypocritical.
it's a YouTube channel, right? It's their service, so technically they can do whatever the hell they want, right? Strictly speaking.
Yeah.
However, and I think the adpocalypse is what really got it for me, is the fact that they're clearly doing whatever suits their wallet best.
Oh yeah.
And it's not in the thing that gets me is it isn't in the sense that let's get as many people to make as much money as possible. They're siding with bigger, talk shows and stuff like that instead of their own content. And sure, that might help in the short run, but I think in the long run, it'll actually be detrimental to them.
I think though also they had this problem with YouTube with everything being demonetized as well. So you have a few of the creators that I watch will upload a video, and within seconds, because it violates the terms of service, they don't make any revenue or very little revenue from it. And it's like, but they claim to support certain things, or they'll claim that this is fine, this is okay, we respect people making videos about this, it's all like, yay, we love videos like this. And then 2 seconds later, it's demonetized. And it's like, but it's not violating terms of service. You've just put back a channel which evidently does. And now everyone's kind of like, well, what is your term of service? If you're just going to backtrack on your own terms of service, then what do we do?
Yeah.
And I
You-
think
you've Go on.
Benjamin from last week, Lover of Tech, who was a guest on last week's podcast, he had a story, and I'm not sure if he discussed it on the podcast or if we'd just been talking about it pre-show, but he does tech videos, right? Extremely inconspicuous, like. And the video in question was like a camera comparison, right? So he was filming on 2 separate phones at the same time and just comparing the cameras. That got demonetized. It got demonetized, and then he went to dispute it. And YouTube has recently put in a thing where you can't dispute their claim until the video gets over 1,000 views or whatever it is. Which to me sounds ridiculous.
It is stupid, because I have a couple of friends, especially on the gaming side of things. On the gaming side of things, there was a couple of people that were playing games, and they would get claimed not for the game, but for like music they were playing in the background. Now that I can understand.
Yeah.
But they had licenses for it, and I know a couple of these bigger YouTubers, they do have licenses for the music, and they do it properly, so they have no reason to receive the claim. But they couldn't get it off. and they got a copyright strike, and they're like, well, I have a license. So why have I been copyright claimed? And it's just this whole mess of YouTube just being like, you have a claim, you have a claim, you have a claim, you can't do this anymore. And it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
I found it interesting. I think it was Casey Neistat or something like that. After when he got demonetized on some videos the other week,
Yeah, it was Casey.
he actually said about people over a certain subscriber level. Can you at least give them the courtesy of, rather than letting the bot take away the monetization, considering how many views and how much money they get from the views in the first day alone, at least let an actual person review the thing, so they don't lose, because they lose so much money from it just being monetized for the first day.
Yeah.
So for considering how little people are above like 2.5 million subscribers, or even 1 million. There's quite a few people above 1, but like 2.5 or 5.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be too much of an issue for them to have someone to review those videos, even just the parts that the system thinks is an issue. They could just watch the 10, 20, 30-second part that the system thinks is an issue and say yes or no, and then it would stop the system from pissing a lot of big names off that would, if it carries on like this, will be looking elsewhere for a possible future. Because that will be the death of the platform, especially with the big names. If they leave, then
I think
YouTube's dead.
a lot of the problem is that YouTube, essentially with any service like this, they rely on their creators. Twitch would be nothing if no one used it. YouTube would be nothing if nobody made videos. And by doing what they're doing, they are stopping people. So people do this full time. The people that are most affected by this are the people that do it full time.
Yeah.
So they make money off this. They need the ad revenue, or they can't keep doing what they want to do. And in that turn, they in a way lose a job. They lose their sense of income purely because YouTube's system just isn't working. And that's what they're not seeing. They're forgetting the creators doing what's best for them at the now, but they're forgetting there are probably hundreds of thousands of people that create and do this kind of thing. Well, not hundreds of thousands that do it full time, maybe within the thousands that do it full time. And they're forgetting that they make all of their money from that, essentially. There was a lot of YouTubers that I used to watch, even like 2 years ago, that made all of their money purely from YouTube and ad revenue. They made everything from YouTube. And now they're struggling. Like, they don't have any source of income purely because of how this system has affected them. And a lot of them, even some of the unpopular ones that people purely watch because they hate them, they're struggling because now people dislike them anyway. They're not making ad revenue. They don't have a job because they've been doing YouTube for 5 years. And now no one's supporting them. And they're like, well, fuck. You know?
I've seen some YouTubers, because over the past few years, the amount of money that YouTubers get per view has dropped. So I think it was a year or so ago, it dropped again by a substantial amount. And then there was a lot of YouTubers that were smaller, like 100, 200K, that were getting a comfortable enough money before, but having to make videos 7 days a week and do really good content just to make sure they definitely did get that money, because putting a lot of money into their content. Then suddenly they were really struggling because they just weren't getting the money from it. And this time, though they're not lowering the amount of money you're getting per views, they're suddenly making an issue where you're just not getting any money from any views because you're just not allowing it to be demonetized. And it is screwing up so many people. And the full-time YouTubers there's lots of channels on YouTube that aren't full-time people and making great content and all that, but the full-time YouTubers are the big viewership channels for YouTube, because they're making videos daily, they're often making the best content, it's the most regular, getting the most views in, and it is what YouTube is all about, really. And if they carry on paying them off and making it so hard for them to make a living, and means less and less people are getting their living from YouTube, then they're going elsewhere. They're not going to be doing it whatsoever or whatever.
I think it's the dawning of the streaming site now.
Yeah, that's why so many people go on Twitch now.
Yeah, it's the dawning of the streaming site, because I'm not saying this is where the money is. You have a better chance of making money off of being a small YouTube channel than you do being a small Twitch streamer. I can say that from experience. You know, like it's Twitch, it's I would say YouTube is more difficult to start in still. Getting somewhere
Yeah.
with YouTube is still very difficult, but
Twitch is
Twitch,
easier to start with.
it's easier to start with, yeah, but then you have to get that initial build up, which is quite difficult. That's where the balance with them is. YouTube is difficult to get started, but once you get the ball rolling and people start noticing you and subscribing to you, people come back and watch the videos because they can whenever.
I don't
But-
know. I find with smaller YouTubers, of course, they've got to keep up with that. And I know I'm subscribed to a bunch of smaller YouTubers, and when they upload a video, I don't even notice, because a lot. I mean, if you're if you're uploading daily, then I might see enough videos, and of course keep coming back. But I think to find content on Twitch is so much easier. It's so much easier to follow someone and just see when they're streaming. I think to deal with Twitch is a hell of a lot easier. To get support, like if you do have an issue with something being flagged or complained at, whatever, it's so much easier to speak to Twitch about it. You will get it sorted, and you'll get it sorted by people a lot of the time, whereas of course YouTube, you're always just conversing with a bot, basically.
Yeah, I think that's where the problem is, because Twitch is I think Twitch is more personal, because if you want to watch somebody play a game, you go to YouTube. If you want to talk to somebody, you come to Twitch. I think that's where the difference is. I think because Twitch has built its foundation essentially on talking to people, so they have to their service has to be talking to people. If you're going to be on a site that you broadcast yourself communicating and doing things for people, your community service and your support service needs to be the same. Otherwise, people are going to be like, what the fuck, man? I don't want to get referenced to a bot. Like, I know you have staff. Let me talk to them. Whereas YouTube is kind of like, okay, people can watch your videos whenever. Like, I can go on a YouTube channel right now and watch a video that was uploaded like 6 years ago. You can't necessarily do that with Twitch.
Yeah,
well, I mean, you can.
You can get on the on-demand, but who really watches a 2-hour on-demand whilst you can't?
No one
interact?
does. Like, I mean, a couple of people do. If you've got highlights, yeah, Twitch's highlight system's great because it's kind of like mini YouTube videos. But YouTube have this problem now where they're not. I don't think they're keeping up with what's happening with Twitch and Mixer and Periscope and all of these other live services. They're just not keeping up. YouTube gaming, because everybody's like, YouTube's in a state, nobody wants anything to do with YouTube gaming.
Yeah, some people purely stream on YouTube gaming only because they've got the following on YouTube.
Yeah,
I know one of the people that I follow, AJ3 FIFA, or AJ3 now, Andy Castell, he is 1 million or so subscribers on YouTube, and he would far prefer to stream on Twitch. The only issue he has is all of his following is on YouTube, so to then get enough of that following over to Twitch is just too much.
He needs to do what we're doing. He needs to cast simultaneously to both.
Yeah, I think the thing is also, I think another interesting thing should you mention, like sort of transitioning from platform to platform. It's easier to go from Twitch to YouTube and not the other way around.
Yeah.
Because like you said, if you have a following on YouTube, those people are following you because they're active on YouTube. They expect you to be on YouTube. They don't expect it to be live, but they know when you're going to upload, essentially. Going from
YouTube
Twitch to YouTube is a bit different, because you can just be like, okay, so I did a stream today. They may be a highlight video at X time, but they know they've always got some form of content on your Twitch, so your YouTube's only going to kind of be there if they miss something.
Yeah.
But going from one, it's difficult.
I think someone supporting themselves on Twitch is a lot easier in that case as well. But the whole system that Twitch has for supporting the streamers is just so much easier, because they've made it. They've realised that as a platform, it is nothing without its creators. So they've made it easier for the creators to do what they want to do. and YouTube just stopped doing that.
It made it more
especially-
difficult in a sense.
Yeah, I mean they added things like the cheers, and you get the money or most of the money from the cheers. I think it is.
50. It's for affiliate it's 50/50 on everything. And I think the
Yeah.
percentage is it's higher for partner, obviously. I think it's like 60/40 for partner.
Yeah.
But for affiliate it's 50/50 with everything. But yeah, like you say, there are other things. You don't just exclusively make money from ad revenue on Twitch.
Yeah.
So I think that's better in a way.
I hate
Yeah,
to be
and
one that cuts us short. And Paul, maybe you have one last point you want to make. However, we have been live for like an hour and 40 minutes. So I think if you have one more point you want to make, Paul, you can, but we're going to wrap it after that.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the whole idea with YouTube, it is you're fully supporting yourself on ad revenue unless you make an external donation source, and it's not easy to do that. They finally added the donation thing with the streams, but of course Twitch has always been a case of you can subscribe with money to support them. You can of course do the donations, but now you can of course do the cheers to support them. And it's just making it so much easier to do as a job. And yeah, it's a very different content creation platform in how the content is created, how much time you put into just recording it. Of course, you don't have the editing afterwards most of the time. But it's just YouTube needs to stop thinking about their wallets and start thinking about the fact their wallets are going to be screwed in a year or two time if they don't start thinking about the people putting the money into their wallets.
So,
Or allowing
on that
money
note,
to be put in there.
On that note, a huge thank you to both Paul and Emily for being on. So, going from left to right, Paul, where's the best place for people to find you? Go.
Well, if you wish to find me and my team of pandas,
Why do you have so many pandas?
okay, so if you wish to find the four of us, then you can go to snpy.tech/Paul. It's basically at this point a link to my Twitter where I'm very active. So if you want to message me about something, then you can. They're all going to be chucked onto the floor, and I'll get back to you pretty quickly. I do tweet some awesome stuff at people. I have quite often having conversations with them too. And occasionally I'm retweeting.
We have the worst
stuff.
conversations ever. Like, they're just so
They're
bad.
usually really random, but they're really funny. So.
And then, secondly, Emily, where's the best place to find you?
The best place to find me is probably also my Twitter, which is @ProfessorX, or if you go to snpy.tech/Emily, it'll take you to my Twitch page, which I do stream things on. If you're here from my Twitch, hi.
So thank you to everyone for joining. This is the first time I've been full screen all show. Look at this. I intentionally didn't go full screen on mine. I avoided it all I could. So I just want to point out, thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed. If you didn't, you were here for like an hour and a half. What the hell? Find something else. Do it. I don't know. Like, honestly, like, you can't. You listened to this for an hour and a half and didn't enjoy it. There's something wrong there. So, if you did vote, there's good news. You can go to snpy.tech/YouTube for the YouTube channel, /Twitter for the Twitter, /Facebook. And then outside of that, if you want to listen to the audio version of a podcast, it's /podcast. If you have an Apple device, go to /iTunes to get the podcast on iTunes. It's also on any podcast aggregator. As long as you type Snappy-Tech podcast, there is an audio version. Shout out to Daniel, because he demanded it in the chat just as I looked down. Lucky him. And then just afterwards said JK. So, oof, really, really got away with that one. Make sure to hit the follow button if you're watching this on Twitch. Make sure to subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. As I mentioned, next week it will be pre-recorded, so there won't be a Twitch version, so go check it out on YouTube, or the audio only version that will come out at the same time because it is pre-recorded. We are live every Sunday. This week it was 8 PM. Next week, though, and from there on, it will be 5 PM GMT, which is a slightly earlier time in the US and a slightly later time in Eastern Europe. So make sure to do that. Thanks to all of our guests for being on. And ooh, that's trippy. This is where we call it a show for the YouTube portion. I reckon we're going to stay live on Twitch for the next 10 minutes. However, if you're listening to this on audio or on YouTube, we will see you next week with the Snappy-Tech podcast. Bye.